Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 13.46, The Warp of You. We are back. You're back too.
So I decided I will do the Aethers just to stay consistent with the voice readings and because they're special to me. No podcast, no JoJo thing, nothing else. I'm just doing these during
You're like Jonah.
And if Tin writes a fucking 15-page chapter, he can read it himself.
Luckily for me, this one's 10 pages.
Alright. Shall we begin?
Sure.
Let me tell you a story about a certain man. Don't worry, it won't take long. The story takes place on a planet, in a city, in a house. A baby was born to parents. I'm sure you'd like more specific information than that. Unfortunately, that's not possible. Even if you were to ask the man the story is about for more details, he'd be unable to give them to you. It's not that these details were taken from him. No amnesia or trauma has wiped his mind clean. It's simply that, to this man, the only things that exist are the things that interest him. All else is mere trivia. So, let me tell you this story in full. On a planet, in a city, in a house, a baby was born to parents. Perhaps this was at nighttime. Perhaps this was during the day. Whatever the case, when that baby came into the world, it did three things for the very first time. For the first time, it opened its eyes. For the first time, it let out a wail. And for the first time, rainbow aether sparked. So the story goes. Every word of it is true. So I'm curious, because you said in order to get aether, you can't just feel the emotion, you have to reach out for power.
Built different.
Okay, so Booming's just an exception.
But he was born an arrogant baby, you see.
Okay, but that's like still lore, though.
Yeah.
Okay. The shepherdess... Sorry, it just hit me what you said. He was born an arrogant baby. I'm just thinking of all the panels now in my head. That follow? Why did you hit me with that? We were reading. The shepherdess had considered many people for the throne of the Supreme. Ruth Blaine was her prime candidate now, but she'd given all their due consideration. Avaman the announcer, master of the winds, Atoy Muzazi the moonlit swordsman, Mariloko the shade from the past, the sixth dad, the madwoman with a taste for blood. Dragon Hadrian. She never even considered Paradise Karen.
No.
Oh my lord. The list went on. The strongest she could find, with the most potential for future growth, but there were two she'd very intentionally left out. The first was Nae. Needless to say, there was no way she would ever allow that wretch to claim the throne of the Supreme. She doubted the freak even wanted it. But if things ever looked like he'd ascend the throne, she'd rather the supremacy itself collapse than give it to him. What the fuck did he do?
His vibes are rancid.
What happened to, of course, Azaz? I'll keep your supremacy going. Not if this little freak's in charge. He was the shadow, the enemy at the gates. He was the sort of danger Azaz had formed the supremacy against. His victory would mean the end of everything. It didn't bear thinking about. The second was Wu Ming. At first, this hadn't been a conscious thing. She'd only realized that she'd been avoiding considering the clown of the Supreme once she'd finished investigating the other three contenders. When she thought about power, he was certainly up there. But when she thought about power that could be harnessed? No way. He was like hot metal, forcing her to recoil at the touch. Wu Ming was simply too much, a force that repelled all reason and all reasonable. He shouldn't be able to use his aether so effortlessly. He shouldn't be able to have so many abilities. He shouldn't be able to develop more at such an absurd speed. Aether was a light of the mind, yes, but it was also a power bound by rules. Every aether user developed their strength and abilities by working around those laws. But there was an exception to every rule, and that exception was named Wu Ming. Monster. The shepherdess had been loath to use additional resources against the rampaging Ruth Blaine. Against Wu Ming, though, she didn't hesitate. Hands moving with all the speed her body would allow, she hurled 2 emerald marbles forward, her aether flowing into and activating them. Devil Core! She roared as the marbles erupted into light. Draconic Devil! The single-use aether armaments exploded outwards. Ooh, do you gain power by making it single-use?
It was more like the thing they do spends the object, basically.
Yeah, but is that a restriction of itself?
It could be a restriction, yeah.
The single-use aether armaments exploded outwards, a crystal shell growing from the tiny marbles until they were no longer visible. Instead, within mere seconds, they were simply the cores of 2 massive serpentine dragons, their crystalline bodies sharp and ready to eviscerate. As one, the 2 beasts flowed through the air towards the descending Wu Ming, their jaws opened in a silent roar. He met them with a cheeky grin of his own. Oh, we're playing toy soldiers? He said. Sure, let's do it, honey. Arachnus sapiens! A bundle of string tore its way free from its extended fingers. Wrong, it's there. And from that string... and from that string crawled out a massive beast of Ming's own design. It was grotesque, a hybrid between a malformed human and a colossal spider, 8 pillar-like legs skittering on the ground far below it. Haphazard yellow eyes bulged in fury as the creature met the draconic devils with a 1-2 jab, repelling their initial attacks and sending shards of crystal raining down. Wait! Wu Ming cried out as he landed on the Spider-Man's shoulder. Wait, I changed my mind. Arachnus Rex! I want to call this one Arachnus Rex! The shepherdess clicked her tongue as she clambered onto the rocky back of one of the draconic devils, glaring at the man opposite her, presumably.
Yeah.
Aether users were beautiful because of how they struggled against their limitations to produce power. A child with no limitations at all was nothing but an eyesore. She hurled a hail of throwing knives at the clown of the supremacy, their trajectory accelerated by chronodissonance. The spider creature was shredded apart by the rain of blades, but Wu Ming just stood there. But Wu Ming did not die. Instead, his body opened, forming holes that the knives passed harmlessly through, impacting the wall behind him. This was not a human body. Reports of the fourth contender's death had not been exaggerated, it seemed. I need you to chill with the meme references, alright? I need you to chill, you motherfucker. Danoni?
Yeah?
Oh, are you actually sad?
I'm weeping.
I need you to pull back a crumb. This wasn't Aether Awakening she was fighting. Hold on, let me do not disturb because I keep getting pinged, sorry.
Stop disturbing him! He's scared!
He leapt at her and she retreated, freezing parts of the shattered street to block his passage. Even so, the clown advanced, the strings composing his body changing his shape with each leap. A man, a woman, a tiger, a koi fish. With each blow, another huge hole was opened up in a draconic devil, and before long both of them were shards upon the ground. There didn't seem to be much limit to Wu Ming's shape-shifting anymore. She'd expected something like this, but even so, a shiver went down her spine. This was how the Gene Tyrants had fought. The 1,000-year terror in her bones stirred. As they returned to the border of the construction site again, the shepherdess threw out another volley of knives, forcing Ming to leap back and put some distance between them. He returned to his normal form as he landed. That damn bloody grin still went unbroken. I'm surprised, he grinned, putting a hand against his bare hip as he leaned against the wall. The shepherdess and all, I thought you'd be right in my face. A battle for every second or something, you know? But you're lingering all the way at the back. Am I not good enough for you, darling? Or is it just that you don't like fighting much? The shepherdess's glare hardened into murder. Don't presume to know me, clown! Wu Ming snapped his fingers, red teeth gleaming in the light. He knew he'd got her. Seriously, though, he continued, even when you were fighting that chicken guy, you stayed out of sight and struck when he wasn't looking, right? You're more an assassin than a fighter. Nothing wrong with it, but still. The chicken guy? There was no way. She knew for a fact that Wu Ming hadn't been there when she'd eliminated Chicken Punk. If he had been, there's no way he would have been able to surprise her a few minutes ago. Nobody was ever able to sneak up on the shepherdess. But then again, that was nothing but a rule, wasn't it? The exception grinned. Yep, and he gave me a useful hint, too. How'd it go again? Hey, villain, right? The shepherdess's eyes widened. He knew. This bastard knew how to get around chronodissonance's rewind and deal lasting damage. He had been there. He had seen Chicken Punk's awakening. Wait, what was it again?
We'll see.
I know he, infused his Aether into her, but I thought that was an exception because he was an awakening. Oh. So, this, she had another true enemy after all.
It's nice.
Chronodissonance.
My natural enemy was you, Wu Ming.
Chronodissonance allowed the shepherdess to simulate time manipulation on anything she infused. Naturally, that included her own body. Whenever she was hit by an attack, she could simply rewind time to erase the effects of said attack, essentially making any non-lethal injury worthless. However, at the moment a blow was landed on an Aether user, their infusion wavered for just the tiniest fraction of a second. If, in that instant, the enemy infused the wound with their own Aether, they achieved sovereignty over it. The shepherdess couldn't rewind or interfere with it at all. Does that limitation apply to everyone or just her?
To everyone. If you have a healing ability, someone could do that to you to get around it. You need,
so,
really
all reinforcement waivers when you take a hit?
Yeah, but it's for so brief an instant that you need to really be
It's the black flash of Aetheral Space.
Exactly, yeah. You have to intentionally be doing it, and you're very unlikely to do it.
And only Wu Ming, the exception, can land black flashes without fail. Oh dear. Oh dear! Well, that's also interesting because the huge reason you can't do mental or most abilities, right, is because, like, their Aether protects them. But if you do it just right, you could, like, totally surpass that, yeah?
Maybe not, because when I say it drops where you've dealt the wound. It's not like your Aether turns off it completely.
Right, but, like, you could get something that pierces through their reinforcement, gets in their body.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Could you automate that process?
You could try.
Sorry, I need to keep reading. Naturally, blah blah blah. Ooh. The shepherdess couldn't rewind or interfere with it at all. Against an enemy like Wu Ming, being unable to heal could be fatal. She'd have to take desperate measures. She gritted her teeth. This was exactly what she'd wanted to avoid when fighting Ruth Blaine. From her pocket, she whipped out another single-use Aether armament, sourced directly from the Maker Guild. A tiny, humanoid figure, cut from paper, with a simple smile on its face. As she charged it with her Aether, the paperman exploded. Whisper Troop version 3! Into a horde of human-sized copies, all of which surged towards Ming and the unconscious Ruth Blaine like a tsunami. No matter their numbers, they were still made of paper. Against Wu Ming, they wouldn't last long, but that was fine. They didn't need to last long. All they needed to do was give the shepherdess the tiny fraction of time she needed. Why would she not have wanted to use this?
Because it's single use. She's got RPG syndrome.
Oh, time to raise her hand.
Because what if I need
Time to coalesce her Aether into a proper apocalyptic structure. Time to open her eyes and mouth, both of them now blazing with blinding pink Aether. And time to speak. Time Crash! Let me tell you a story. This story takes place on the planet Mianot during the twilight of the Gene Tyrant's empire. The world was ruled by a tyrant named Alexandra, a noble of minor station and arrogance far beyond her means. Even as the revolution burned across thousands of planets, she believed that her estate, lying on the edges of galactic territory, would be safe. The war would soon be over, and the aggressors punished in ways hitherto unimaginable. This is what the Gene Tyrant Alexandra truly believed. As such, she took no notice of the wider world, and did what she was wont to do. In short, she partook in genetic decadence. The girl was born choking. Her first memory was of flailing her arms, tearing at the membrane before her, ripping her way out of the birthing sac before she drowned in the matter that had formed her. As she writhed out into open air, she collapsed onto the ground, heaving for breath. She was born a child, not an infant. Alexandra didn't have the patience to wait for her creations to grow up. Awareness, reason, language, these things already existed inside her brain, ready formed, context without content, a crafted doll with a crafted consciousness. The girl wasn't alone. This was Alexandra's latest distraction, an attempt to create a perfect replica of her own preferred form. Perhaps she intended to use it as a body double in case assassins of the Blind Man came to Mianot. Perhaps she just wanted someone to try clothes for her. Whatever the case, she demanded exactitude. The Gene Tyrant herself stood high... Wait, so this girl looks like Alexandra?
Yeah.
Okay. The Gene Tyrant herself stood high above the pit of writhing corpses, her pink eyes scanning each and every one of her new creations. Her face was blank, expressionless. She was the kind of organism that demonstrated emotion only when she wished to. The Child Empress, clad in flowing robes of velvet and diamond, put her hands together and slowly, unnaturally smiled. The two megapugnant guards at her side stood to attention. "That one is acceptable," Alexandra breathed, pointing down at the child. "Recycle the rest." Are the megapugnants like what Fix was?
No. These are just, like, really good pugnants.
Ah, double pugnant. Whenever Ruri thinks back to that moment, it becomes intertwined with another. The words that gave her life by pure coincidence are fused with the ones that gave her purpose. The words of the one that had saved her. The final wish that has guided her careful hands for 1,000 years. If our strength falters, they will come back. If the supremacy falls, they will come back. I know it. I can see them. In my dreams, behind my eyes, they're at the gates. Always at the gates. Ruri, this supremacy of mine, will you make it last? For that purpose, Ruri the Shepherdess would do anything. It hung in the sky. If the thing that the Shepherdess had summoned was a clock, then it was surely a clock used by the gods. The construct was nearly the size of the arena of the Absolute all by itself. Flatface turned towards the city below like a great staring eye, each tick of the massive second hand enough to make the air vibrate. Towers of gears and cogs rose above it, like the bones of time itself, and a thunderstorm of pink aether broiled around its borders. 5, Time Crash spoke, in a voice volcano deep, loud enough to make glass shiver. Wu Ming grimaced, looking up at the Colossus. The sphere he'd been creating wore away in his hands. 4! Time Crash was the Shepherdess's most potent ability. Unlike Chrono Dissonance, which required her to touch a target and infuse it with her aether, Time Crash would take its satisfaction upon everything that walked the world below. Once it hit 0, everything within its 6-kilometer range would be flooded and forcefully infused with absurd aether. Everything save for the exceptions the Shepherdess had designated, of course. 3! In this case, that exception was Ruth Blaine. Wu Ming would have to swallow his pride and be subject to a rule for once. Already retreating into the shadows, the Shepherdess grinned. 2! Well, the clown of the supremacy wouldn't have to swallow his pride for very long. Chrono Dissonance rewinded, accelerated, and skipped through time. Time Crash broke it. That man would be lucky if he were allowed to even scream. 1! Only he looked up, and there was a grin on his face. Only he looked up, and he pointed his finger up towards Time Crash itself. Only he looked up, and his arm unraveled into string once more. This time, when it reformed, it took on the shape of a long and spindly rifle barrel, pointed straight up towards the sky, locked on to the center of Time Crash's clock. Chaotic rainbow aether broiled at the tip of the weapon. Ming's white ring eyes shrunk down to pinpricks, and he spoke, lethally. Der Fry, cancel! The Shepherdess didn't hesitate. The instant she realized what Wu Ming was doing, she canceled her ability and fled into the night. She hadn't survived 1,000 years of combat by choosing the wrong battles. Besides, she'd already gotten what she wanted. Ruth Blaine's inferno had been lit. Holy shit! she really said, my ass better get out of here or I'm finished!
Wu Ming can do the fry just now. I better keep my ass in his office.
Oh my god.
Agenda space?
Hold on. Ooh. Wu Ming let out a breath. It was sad to see someone get defeated by themselves. It looked like the Shepherdess had overestimated him, and underestimated herself. If she'd pressed the attack, she'd have been able to beat him. That Chrono Dissonance ability was just that good. He let his hand return to being a hand and flapped it in the air. It wasn't as if he could actually use their fry shoots. Oh my god. I did the same bit in ASRP, you motherfucker. Did you steal this from me?
I didn't know about that.
Alright, well, I'm going to tell everyone you stole it from me, because otherwise they're going to think I stole it from you. But Merc did this really early on in the RP. He, pretended to use stir-fry shoots to intimidate someone. He was an Aether Awakening, after all. If he tried to get an Aether-destroying shot off, he'd just blow himself up. Clearly the Shepherdess hadn't believed that, though. Shrugging to himself, he strolled over to the unconscious Ruth. It was a shame what had happened to her. Wu Ming had stuck with her these months in hopes of being able to fight the new and improved Dragon Hadrian, while he waited for Darkstar to show themselves. He hadn't expected the Shepherdess to take the bait instead. Oh well, all's well that ends well. He tapped Ruth with a foot of yarn. You alive? He asked, cocking his head. Looks like I've got to get you up to speed. Let me tell you a funny story. That child was born laughing. The room it was born in was freezing. Those who delivered it were faceless doctors. The mother who had given it life no longer existed in this world. In truth, the child was not even expected to cry. All present believed they'd be hearing nothing but a death rattle. If that. Instead. That's the opposite of arrogance. That's joy. That was a joyful child. From the moment it was born, the child was laughing. Henry the Glutton fathered many candidates for the role of Supreme Heir. This was because he believed an environment filled with powerful rivals would drive his children to greatness. This was also because he was a gruesome man who liked to indulge himself. It doesn't matter. The eighth-born child was a girl who could command swarms of locusts, directing them with commands both intricate and broad to devour her foes. She was the first to die. Wait, this implies that your technique's, born with you?
No.
What is this, then?
It's just telling about the eighth-born child.
That was her Aether technique?
Yeah.
Okay, so she chose that.
Yeah.
Okay. She was the first to die. They found her in a hallway of the Shisha, stripped to the bone by the biting of countless flies. The seventh-born child was a boy who considered himself a man, a swordsman at that. With a blade of flexile white bone, he would cut down any who opposed him. His limbs were found scattered through an escape shuttle. The sixth-born child believed himself to be invincible. He had honed two abilities, a suit of impenetrable armor and a regenerative power that allowed him to restore lost body parts. He was found in what remained of his quarters, helmet and skull smashed open like an egg. The fifth-born child could split herself in two, one to distract while another snuck up from behind. As such, she was never alone and believed she could never be ambushed. She was wrong, both of her. They were found run through on each other's blades. You really do love inventing cool abilities for dead Scrimblos. That's insane. The fourth-born child could create familiars of shadows, hounds, pure black and ready to devour. He sealed himself in the throne room of the Shisha and waited for the dread killer to face him personally. Is the baby doing this all as a baby, by the way?
This is not baby anymore.
Okay, it's just still laughing. By the morning, he was a trail on the floor, bitten in half by something far more monstrous than anything he could make. The third-born child tried to run. He had always been a failure, never even developing his aether, and he did not have the stomach for whatever this was. All that was left of him was found in the shuttle bay, a pulsing lump of something no longer human. The second-born child, the prodigal daughter, could create a world of her own design from the landscape around her, a domain as flexible as her own body and as immovable as a native reality. She died, overpowered in every way, her world overwritten by another. The firstborn child, driven to despair by the ordeal of the last few days, trembled in his bed, staring at the distant door, at the noise beyond it. When the servants came to wake him in the morning, he had already taken his own life out of fear. But he needn't have been afraid. After all, the only thing at the door had been a laughing child. And so Henry found his heir. Wait, this was all Nian, not Wu Ming?
Yeah, that was 9. Well, there's 3 different flashbacks.
Okay, I got confused. So, the baby... Hold on.
One at the start is Wu Ming.
Uh-huh.
One in the middle is Shepherdess. One at the end is 9.
Oh, shit. Nian opened his eyes and smiled as he saw the void stretch out before him. No dark, no light, no up, no down, no matter except him. A perfect absence. Already, though, that void was starting to decay into a world of certainties. He sighed, but he did not stop smiling. It was a rare thing when Nian let go of that smile. The curled lips of barely constrained laughter. Well then, he said as the venue came into existence. Shall we commence this meeting? So, did he, take each of their abilities?
It seems like he had accounts for them, or he could just do what they could do better.
Well, we know from the Dawn Contest he had the bugs.
Yeah, he could do locusts.
So, did he take each of their abilities?
Mm.
Is he a copier? Is he a copy trump?
I'll tell you right, he's not a copy trump, but his ability is such that he can probably copy something that you can do.
We've seen it was Anger Manu, and what was the other one?
Hanra Mazda, I believe it was Anura Mazda, I think that's the translation I went for.
I think you said one that takes everything in and one that lets it out. Does he literally, record techniques?
I can't tell you.
Oh, Tanoni! Alright, you ready to do some questions?
Sure.
I'm so hungry. I need to eat more.
How hungry?
How hungry. Very.
How hungry.
Alright, give me one moment. Go in here.
1 moment. Okay, you had 1 moment.
Okay.
Is that okay? As you're a motherfucker.
No. 1 second. There's so many Aether questions now. Is there any connection/relation between Palatine and the Black Blur that was used to torture the Delsets?
Yes.
Oh, shit! I assume you can't tell us any more about that?
That will be in a later arc.
Oh, shit! Good catch, Wiser! Rurum asks, pardon if this is a rehash, how alike does one have to be for Badge of Honor to count someone as comrades?
It must be a similarity in, personality, or they fought together and are on good terms. So it's either one of those.
How do you get Skipper? Were they really alike in personality?
Yeah, they had similarities in personality.
That's nightmarish to hear.
That's why the
I guess they did. They were both
just
goofballs.
a meaner Skipper voice.
Oh my god, they were both goofballs.
Yeah.
Weiser asks, between the events of 12.7 measuring contest and 13.43 final interview, does the third thigh of Grand Boss still exist, or was it in Lucius or Rexus' Aether when they died?
It was in Rex's Aether when he died.
So it's dead?
It's gone.
Damn.
If you tried
I
to
thought
put
the
him
third
back
thigh was Jester. I misinfoed Weiser.
Yeah. No, Jester did not cut off his thigh and replace it with someone else's thigh. Yeah.
What were the gene Oh, no, that was answered. Quaker asks, how did Violence find and join the Tree of Might? A few things from her narrated chapters and some stuff her friend with the chainsaw said made it seem like she wasn't born into it like Xander.
So basically, she was from the UAP originally, in Weird Space. And, well, she didn't care for the UAP too much. And she went over to Supremacy instead, because some of the propaganda sort of made its way over, and she was like, I'm down with this, I like this. And she went to Supremacy and was like, this is bullshit, the propaganda isn't even true. Where's all the glory?
The Suprema Boo?
Yeah, exactly, she was a Suprema Boo.
Are there, like, UAP-aboos in the Supremacy?
No.
There aren't.
Well, there are, but it would not be treated as lightheartedly.
Yeah, they'd be like, we have to execute you.
You have to go now.
Actually, that gives me a funny idea for a special officer who's like a big UAP-aboo, and the only reason he's able to get away with it is because he's like scarily strong.
He's like Holt. He's like they're investigating. He's like his fellow special officer about to like attack someone. He's like Holt is considered very offensive to attack someone on the UAP. This it goes to live.
It's like, why do you live
beautiful
here?
Custom.
It's like they pay better. That's it.
They're more spiritual people. They consider it distasteful.
He like consumes all the UAP media. He loves his sphere. That's so funny. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.